companies. Now, there are some pros and cons to trading such a heavy tech related asset like the NASDAQ. And the pros and cons are pretty obvious. There's high risk, high reward in this one. And during good periods of time, the NASDAQ typically sees massive outperformance. But there's a trade-off. If we take a look at 2022, when the Federal Reserve was hiking rates and people weren't sure how long that was going to go on, we can see that the drawdown got pretty steep on this one. Had you bought at the wrong time, the NASDAQ from peak to trough was a drawdown of near 38%. That's a significant drawdown, and I don't know about you, but watching your account go down by 38% doesn't sound very fun to me. Back to the S&P 500, by the way, just for reference, the S&P during that same period of time was down a peak of about 27.5%. Still a steep drawdown, but not nearly as much as the NASDAQ. This, again, we would point to the pro of the S&P 500 is very diversified and not so heavily concentrated in technology. The third index that we're going to talk about is the Dow Jones Industrial. And here is something that you need to know right off the bat. We'll start with one of the big pros of this one. The drawdown from peak to trough in this one was only 22.6%. Again, still a steep drawdown overall, but not nearly the near 38% that we saw in the NASDAQ. Now, what is the reason behind this? Well, the Dow Jones is just a much more concentrated on safe and steady companies. I'll show you some of them. So when we take a look at the concentration of this type of index, what we can see is that United Health, Microsoft, Goldman Sachs, we have a much more diverse list. And we can see that in the sector allocation. You can see finance makes up a big chunk of this, technology services, electronic technology, health technology, retail trade. What we can see here, and the point that you need to understand, is that this is not nearly as concentrated in the high risk area that is technology.